Hey y'all, this is MG with the Reimagine You Lab podcast. And as you guys know, we've got something good planned for you today. Before we get going, y'all know I want to thank all of you guys for helping us get to we're at 15,000 subscribers on IG. We've hit our 10,000 mark on YouTube. So I just want to say thanks to everybody who is tuning in. You guys are so the best, like just amazing. I appreciate y'all. Make sure you tune in always on Fridays. Make sure that you hit the like and the subscribe button down there just so that you don't miss an episode. I want to make sure that you get all you need to get because we are always dealing with change. So with that, I've got the housekeeping out the way. I'm super excited about my guests. Want to bring them up on the stage and we are going to dive in. All right. So we have got an innovator, a very awesome young man that's in the building with us today. So I just want to say hello to you, sir. AC Evans with Drips. How's it going, sir?
Good, Michelle. How are you doing?
I am doing amazing. So AC, like I do every episode, I believe that we are going to jump and we're going to go beyond the bio. So if you don't mind, and you told me you did it. So if you don't mind, why don't you tell folks who you are, where you're at, what you do, a little bit about you. Is that good?
Yeah, let's do it. Who am I? Yeah, I would say first and foremost, since a young age, entrepreneur, started and had many different businesses and projects over the years. I'm now a father, a husband, and a founder of a software company. Software company is drips.com. We do conversational artificial intelligence chat with a lot of healthcare companies, insurance companies, helping them reach out to their members, help those members get better care. So yeah, I'd say father/founder who often struggles with those diametrically opposed personas.
Oh, I know it. I know it's a lot to be you, to be a father and a founder. There's a lot of responsibility with both of those, right?
I think it's tough for any leader. You know, I mean, you obviously are in a big corporation and lead a lot of people. It's just tough. You know, it's tough because one ounce of energy put into one side of your life is kind of taken away from the other side. That work home balance, I think, is relatively a myth, but we try, right?
Right. We do the very best that we can, but it is a myth. Like I tell people, if something has your attention, something else doesn't. And it's just kind of the way that it is. So we just figure out how to do the best that we can with the thing that we are working on right then. But and at the same time, having a new little one is always amazing because when they grow up, there will be some things about you that he takes right along with him, being that founder that he wouldn't get any other way. So it's a good trade. It's a good trade, but we do have to balance it as best we can.
I've learned to think of it as counterbalance, right? Like I think of tightrope walkers. Like I don't think they're ever actually balanced, right? They're always making these micro adjustments. They're always, tweaking, their footing. And that's at least how I try to go about it. I find myself in every single day, like right before this call, I'm running around without a shirt on, chasing my toddler, trying to feed him chicken katsu because my wife needed me to jump in because she had to deal with somebody else, so, you juggle it and you counterbalance and you make it work.
Yeah, you do. Counterbalance. I like that. I'm going to have to take that and use it. I like that. But that's so true. That's so true. So tell me this, AC. So you are a founder and father and all of those things. And whenever we're in the lab, I'm always asking people like, how did you get to what it is that you are doing now, right? We know that it's a road. Nobody's path is like linear. It's always a couple of different things, a couple of different places that you may have gone to or had to do. But so tell us, if you don't mind, let's just jump in. And where did you get started? How did you get started?
Oh, it goes way back. I worked from an early age, right? I think I was 12 years old, maybe, pumping gas, fixing tires, that kind of thing. So I had a pretty strong work ethic. drilled
Mhm.
into me pretty early. I then and I a little bit of a tough upbringing, alcoholic parents, physically abusive father. So work was an exciting thing for me, right? It was like not being at home. Not a terribly great student, almost failed a couple different grades in high school, summer school, a couple different times, D minus type average student. And a wrestling coach of mine, I got into wrestling,
Yeah.
and a wrestling coach of mine, kind of realized I was pretty kind of ADHD, like I was a really decent artist, and I was very talented in that regard, but I was failing all these classes. So this wrestling coach of mine suggested that I looked into this vocational school, which did kind of hands-on trade work,
Oh,
right? And they
right.
had a new course called digital design, and I was already into
Mhm.
computers, I was already into art, so it kind of blended, right? It was kind of like graphic design but also programming. And long story short, I spent half of my high school career there, and there I was top of the class, 4.0 student, teacher's favorite, MVP, blah blah
Mhm.
blah, and I go back to that school now and give speeches. I'm proud to say. So that's really, in my mind, what got my first starting. And I just learned I was a better hands-on learner, right? I ended up being a college dropout, but that's because I was hands-on, already building websites, making money, building
Mhm.
programming tools, building databases for people, building automation tools for people. And that's kind of really how it all started, was this hands-on learning that got me placed at a job actually at the Cleveland Browns in the Gund
Mhm.
Arena, where I was designing the helmets clashing, and like the
Oh,
three-point
really? Okay.
shot, or the half court shot, art and all
Mhm.
that, for the boom boom clap, type stuff. It was really a fun job. And um
Sounds like it.
yeah, and so I had a lot of jobs, between the gas station and the Browns, and every single one of them I got fired from, every single one of them. Um, so I learned eventually that I was a pretty bad employee. Like at the Browns, I'll just give you the one firing story, because some of them
Okay.
probably might not be appropriate for your viewers. But at the Browns, one of the only things I had to do on the game day was I had to record the game, right? Because I was kind of low man in the group, right? I was like
Yeah.
17, 18 years old, and the next person in there was
Yeah.
probably mid 30s. So they made me, you had these big, I can't remember what they were called. They're like Betamaxes or some sort. It looked kind of like a VHS tape. But every day, every
Okay.
game, at the beginning of the game, I'd put it in, hit record, halftime, take it out, put another one in, hit record, label, and give them to the director, right? And the director is the guy that's saying camera two, pan left, zoom in on the
Right.
quarterback, whatever. So it's just like a really cool room to be in. But all my work was done in prep, so I didn't have anything else to do. So anyway, one day, deep into my second year there in the season, I forgot to record the second half. I
Oh.
was busy programming something, I was designing something, I can't remember what it was, but I just spaced out and didn't do it. And I go to Daniel, the director at the time, and I said, "Hey Daniel, here's the first half. Forgot to record the second half. My bad." And he looked at me like I had three heads. He's like,
Oh,
"What do you?"
man.
Yeah, he's like, "What do you mean you forgot to record the second?" Keep in mind, this is 99, 2000, right? This is before
Yeah.
TiVo. This is before, this is
You
before there
did
was
all
other
this.
recordings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So he tells me, he goes, "Aaron, you can't forget to record the game." He's like, "There's now going to be a hole in the NFL archives because of you." And he said,
Oh,
"And that hole is not going to have your name on it. It's going to have my name on it." Right. So he sits me down. He tells me this. He's like, "If it ever happens again, you're fired." Right. Just plain
mhm.
simple. So I took it very seriously. And, my ADHD brain, handful of games later, forgot again, fired me on the spot. So that's when I started really, yeah, that's when I really leaned into my entrepreneurialism. And, I had at that time already built up a decent like web design consultancy type firm, doing,
Yeah.
just random consulting, odd jobs, programming, building websites for various different companies. And that's just kind of how I got started.
Nice. I love that's a good story. That's a good story. Hey, we sometimes there's some lessons that we learn the hard way, right? Like,
Yeah.
but you know what? But even in that, like, I always think about, like what was it, that makes people, really lean in or kind of pay attention to, because hey, say that you decide that you did that and you were really good doing that, then maybe you wouldn't have, maybe Drips wouldn't be here. So I kind of
That's
always
right.
think
Yeah.
there's parts of the path that, we wouldn't, it's the horror part of the story, but hey, it always
Oh,
ends
yeah.
up leading us to the right place.
Yeah, I had probably 37, epic failures between the browns and drips, as do many entrepreneurs, right? Like it's like you said,
Yeah.
the zig and the zag, like there's never.
Mhm.
I always tell people that as I coach young entrepreneurs now and young startups that are trying to find product market fit and just
Yeah.
getting started, and they a lot of them these days they tend to look at it like it's this binary, like I made it or I didn't make it. And I'm like, no,
Mhm.
you only didn't make it once you quit, right? Like once you
Right.
just stop, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can keep zigging and zagging and figuring it out and going over the next wall or under the one after that or around the one after that or through the one after that. And it was funny. I was on a panel talking about this at a Northeast Ohio startup convention, and I listed out, just as I was sitting there thinking, I listed out literally 30 some businesses that I had started. Now some were kind
Really?
of small and
Yeah.
MVPs and only lasted a handful of months, but I quantified the business by, or I qualified it rather, by something that I either put real money into, right, like tens of
Mhm.
thousands of dollars, or I put hundreds of hours into. But these are
Right.
all things like I really tried to make them work, right? And I listed, I talked about 7 or 8 of them on stage. I was like, guys, I had 30 different failures before I got to the one that's done as well as this one has.
Yeah.
And some were good, and sometimes I had good years, and sometimes I had bad years. But yeah, it's just you just got to keep going.
Yeah, you know what? Absolutely. I think that's the key. Like, really, is just to keep going. And like most, I hear sometimes people will say, like you don't even really know until you failed at something. Like you fail at it, or it wasn't as successful as you thought it was going to be, or wanted it to be, or whatever, for whatever those reasons are. But you don't quit. You're right. You're not. It's not failure until you just say, "Hey, I'm done. I quit. Just
Yeah,
I'm not gonna get thrown in the towel." But
yeah,
hey,
yeah. I
those
try to
Rocky
teach my.
Balboa moments.
I try to teach. Yeah, that's right. The rocket bubble. It's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit, right? And keep
Yeah.
moving forward. So Rocky said, I'm a big Rocky fan. I try to teach my daughter because she's very competitive. 6 years old,
Mm.
just a gnarly little athlete. She's into climbing and jujitsu and boxing and
Oh wow.
whatever you call it when you're hanging from the ceiling, swinging from the silk thing, aerials, I guess,
Yeah.
gymnastics, but she's very, very competitive. And she's seen, she watches me do some competitions and stuff. And I say, baby, it's okay. You either win or you learn, and I
Yeah.
always try to think of that. I try not to think of win and lose. And I always think of like, you win or you learn something.
Right. No, that's good. I love that. I love that. No, that's key. So tell me this, what is, when you think about change, because change is a big part of what I think everybody kind of has to get good at, and feel like, hey, they can do it. They can pivot if they need to. They can make adjustments and stuff. And I think that's always the thing that is hard for people to do. But when you think about change, what would you say is a big change, or how do you quantify change for people? How do you sum that up when you're telling people to change?
Yeah, so this is probably the thing I was most excited about with your podcast and your focus on change. My company Drips, one of our core values is improve, which I think of
Mhm.
kind of the same thing, right? Like you don't necessarily
Yeah.
want to change for the worse, right? Like you're talking
Right.
about positive change, right? So I'm a big, big, big fan of change, right? I'm a big fan of uh reinventing yourself and learning and all this. And I have a saying that I love that I think is relevant. It's that people only change when they, make sure I don't butcher it, when they hurt enough that they have to, or they
Uh-huh.
learn enough that they want to.
Yeah.
And that's it, right? So when I think of change and I look back at my life, there were many, 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 many moments that I made big changes. Most
Mhm.
of those changes happened because of something that hurt, right? Some
Mhm.
big financial thing, some big
Yeah.
medical thing, right? A
Mhm.
relationship I lost, my dad drinking himself to death, my wife having postpartum depression when I was building the company. All these like
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
painful things, were the things
Yeah.
that caused kind of big evolutionary changes for me.
Yeah.
But the other part of that saying again is like, you change when you hurt enough that you have to, which this is where most people unfortunately get a lot of their growth, or you learn enough that you want to. I could turn the camera, you can see a wall of books over there, you know, books, mentorships, meeting people like
Yeah.
you, like, so that's what I think about is like trying to get the change out of the comfortable way of changing, which is just learning enough
Yeah.
that I want to change. Right now, it could
Right.
be I'm not good at having hard conversations. I'm a conflict avoidant pleaser, right? So that's something I'm like actively working on and I'm learning, right? I'm not
Yeah.
like, I don't want to have to change because I, lose a member of my C-suite because I was too chicken to have a tough conversation with them, right? So I want to
Right.
learn how to change that part of me, right? And that's something, that's an example of, one of many
Mhm.
things I'm working on. So I don't know if that answered the question exactly.
It does. No, and I like that how you said that you know we have it's part of the process, and you want to change, you know, because you desire to. You're going to make the change as opposed to it being something that you hurt. You hurt to a point where, hey, I've got to change. If I don't stop eating, you know, a certain way, that has caused me to get to a place I don't want to be, then, yeah. And it's good when we can do that. And that's the thing that I really like to lean into, is because you can change. Change is a choice. Like,
That's
you
right.
get to
Change is a
choose.
choice.
Yeah, you get to choose how you change, and when you change, and why you change, and what differences it could potentially make for you and even those around you. What would you say was the biggest one big change that you ever had to make? What was the big I always say, what was the change that changed you?
Huh. I, uh, I think there's probably two that are coming to mind quickly, at least. One is getting serious about my career because I was arguably by every measure a pretty successful entrepreneur, right? I had
Yeah.
some years where I made millions of dollars, but I also had some years where I made $0, right? Or negative, negative
Yeah.
X $100,000, right? So while I had success, it was this just whipping wild,
Hmm.
roller coaster of feast or famine, right? And when I met a woman, my wife Annie, and I fell in
Yeah.
love, and we started getting real serious. And then I woke up one day and I was like, man, I'm trying to think of how old I was at the time. I was early 30s, 31, 32. I'm like, man, I'm 32. I've
Hmm.
I've I've done all this stuff. I've lived all over the country. I lived in Belize, remote.
Yeah.
I've had this, really fun, entertaining life where I've eaten everything and I've traveled. And I've done, I've had like
Yeah.
this great life, but I haven't built anything that's worth anything, right? Like, and I
Mhm.
started thinking like, man, if I stopped hustling, right? I say hustling, but you know what I mean. If I
Yeah.
stopped
Yeah.
doing all my, trying to
The
figure out the
stuff
next
you
thing,
do. Hmm.
I'd have nothing to show for it, right? Like I wouldn't be able to pay my bills. I didn't have any real money saved, Wasn't bad off financially, but I certainly wasn't anywhere near retirement. So that change, that just realization of like, wow, I'm in love with this woman. She's going to want to get married. We're going to want to have kids. And I
Yeah.
have built nothing of real value, right? Like I had all these money
Yeah.
hacks, I call them, right? Like, trading time for money, or had these little projects that, maybe they were interesting, but they weren't doing anything like what Drips does, right? Like helping people
Right.
get HRAs or comprehensive medical reviews, and you know
Yeah.
all these things, renewals,
Yeah.
whatever. Like we're like solving like real problems for real companies. Therefore, the
Absolutely.
company has real value, right? And
Yeah.
so that I think was the biggest change, was just like kind of getting serious, and like kind of
Mhm.
just like waking up and be like, God, I got to do something that's lasting. So at that
Yeah.
moment, I started a software incubator, and I started up 6 or 7 different projects. Strips was ended up being one of them, where I was like, okay, I need to build things that are lasting, something that's going to
Yeah.
like matter long term. So
Yeah.
that was one change. The other, I think that it's been a big focus of mine lately, is my health, my physical health, right? So
Mhm. Yeah.
I got up to the point where I was about 250, morbidly obese for my frame. I'm a pretty
Mhm.
short guy, but I was overweight. And it was funny. I had a friend of mine. This is way before I got married. I had a friend
Mhm.
of mine I hadn't seen in a few years, and he came up and he gives me a hug, and he's like, "Oh man, you got fat," And I was like, "Oh, well," and
Am
I,
I? Yeah.
yeah, I was like, "Oh, I guess I am a little overweight," So I go to the doctor, and my wife, anytime she hears me tell the story, she's like, "Yeah, you were really confident." But so I go to the doctor, and I'm just getting my workup and everything, and it was
Mhm.
bad. It was not good at all. So I just started getting serious about losing weight. Like 2 days later, I went to the track, got some
Mhm.
running shoes and started moving my butt. And now, fitness is a really big part of my life. I got a nice little small community of, people that I work out with. We got trainers. I got a nice gym in my basement. My kids are always down there. They want to go work out. And that's helped everything else. Now I got
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
energy that I can keep
Yeah.
up with my kids, right? I got the energy I can keep up with my startup. I can do the red eyes,
Yeah.
and so and it cleans up everything else, right? Like being having a healthy morning, all of a sudden I have healthier choices during the day, and then I maybe I don't drink that night or whatever because I'm trying to keep it tight, so that's mattered a lot to me. So I'd say that's another big change. It's just like realizing like, oh, okay, even though I am, I wore everything comfortably, right, but I wasn't healthy, right? And so that was kind of a similar like get serious, I'm like, it's time to
Yeah.
grow up and take care of my body.
Yeah. No, you know what? And that's real talk, because I think it's so important that there's always that moment where you meet yourself, and when you look yourself in the eyes and you're saying, okay, I hadn't seen myself that way, I hadn't thought about that this way, when you're talking about your wife and decide, hey, I want to have something that's gonna outlast me, right? Like,
Yep.
drips could be there, even Pat, you could decide to sell it, or just when you post-mortem, you can say this, it's still going on. I think about like the guys like H&R Block and
Right.
some of those big companies that have been, I mean, we still have Rockefeller still in the conversation, right? JP Morgan Chase, and these guys were here a long time ago, but their
Yeah.
companies are still doing the things that they had planned for it to do, and even beyond. And so,
Yeah.
but
That's really cool.
yeah, but you get to make a choice, for you too. Like where it's like, what, this is going to serve me long term, and health as well, right? Like, I mean, you can have all the money in the world, but if your health isn't in good shape, it's
Amen. Amen. That's the only thing that really gets under my skin anymore is if, something's wrong with, my wife or my kids or me or some of my
Mhm.
immediate, I can deal with a lot of stress. I could deal with, I know the stuff you deal with at work, right? I can deal with laws changing. I can deal with, threats to the
Yeah,
company. I can deal with, big, wins or losses in the business. Like you learn how to just live with that stuff, and it is what it is. But when it's inside your little hula hoop, it's tough. And yeah, so I think I want to age well, right? I want to
yeah,
be vital, and
yeah.
I don't know. I also want to just live as long as I can. Like it's funny. My
Right.
wife my wife is like the opposite. She's like, nope, I want to punch out, about this. So I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, I'm trying to get like, whatever is going to help me live to be 150 years old.
Right.
But yeah, there was a saying, I'm trying to think of this thing I heard the other day that I thought was interesting about health. Oh, it was somebody said that aging poorly is the aggressive pursuit of comfort. And I thought that was really,
Ooh,
yeah, because you know what I mean. Like you want to be on the couch. Now your back's gonna hurt. You want to eat, more pizza or drink more beer. Now you're gonna have cholesterol issues or whatever, heart
right.
issues. You want to stay in bed all day. So I just thought that was kind of cool. Like, and
That
I
is
I think a
cool.
lot about comfort and effort, and one of the things I always tell the startups that I coach or the
Mhm.
entrepreneurs is that I think effort unlocks everything. And we kind of touched on this earlier
Yeah,
with the keep and trying, right? Like
right.
that takes willpower and that takes effort. And
It does.
uh, if you can figure out how to cultivate willpower and put out a lot of effort, you're gonna win, because eventually you're gonna find something that works, right?
Right. No, that's so true. I like that. Say that one more time. That
I was just saying effort, right? Like effort
Mhm.
to me is the key, right? Like, and
Mhm.
if you can find a way to cultivate willpower, that gives you the ability to put out more effort, right? So
More
like
effort.
when I was starting Drips, I mean, I was doing, I was working 18-hour days, right? I was the only one on, I was on the road. Like I was, doing all the calling, I was helping program the thing. Like it was an unimaginable amount of effort. I got some dysfunctions in my head because of the way that I was raised that allows me to be this obsessive, very, very strong-willed person, right? So like some of that stuff worked out in my favor, but I really believe that that's the key. It's like you got to be able to put a lot of effort into something. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
Parenting, cleaning your house, working out, cooking, learning a musical instrument, anything. All these things, becoming a painter, all these things require time and effort, right? And I think when
They do.
if they get too comfortable, they start losing their willpower, right? And then they stop having so much energy to give, and they have
Yeah.
less effort to expel. And then now they're on that aggressive pursuit of comfort, right? Versus I'm looking for the uncomfortable shit. Like I do cold plunges,
Do
I do
you? Okay.
I do cold plunges, saunas at 200 degrees, steam rooms. I can hold my breath for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like I can do 100
Yeah.
push-ups right now. So I think comfort is on the other side of uncomfortable.
It is. No, you know what? You are so right, AC, because you do. I mean, like you do want the more comfortable we get with sometimes being uncomfortable, it serves you so well. It positions you to be able to have a little bit higher threshold, to keep going, to keep doing stuff, to stay vital. I'm like,
Yep.
if I'm going to be here, I want to have some vim, vigor, and vitality in this body, right? Like I don't
That's
want
right.
to be on the couch. And so people, I'm so glad that you said that. I'm so glad that you said that is good stuff. Good stuff, sir. When you're thinking about AC, like you've done a number of different things, right? You're still doing stuff. I mean, like I haven't had a guest that has told me that they do the cold plunges, but I do them at the massage place that I go to. It's like, hey, jump in, get in that water. Like they've got the hot
Boy,
tub.
if you need some energy, you jump
Yeah.
in a big bucket of cold ice water. You'll get a jolt real quick.
You will. And the amazing thing is that it seemed, like people are like, no, I'm not gonna do that. It's too much. I'm not gonna do that. It's surprisingly how well it serves you, how good you feel, how alive, alert you are. I mean, it makes a difference. It makes a difference. And then you want to stick with it. Those are those types of behaviors and habits that lead you to good places. So no, I love that. I absolutely love that. So AC, what would you say is a change that you hope to see in the next decade? Like, like the world is changing. Like there's
the world, or with
a
me,
drift.
or yeah, what are we talking about?
I'm talking about you, whether it's your
With me,
business,
okay. Yeah.
hey, you can be a world changer. Change the world.
Yeah. Well, look, I think AI is. I mean, man, if your viewers and listeners aren't playing with this type of stuff, the chat GPTs out there, wow, are you missing the boat? I mean, I could pick up my phone right now and start to have a conversation. I could have said, hey, I'm going on Michelle's podcast. This is what they focus on. Here's some of the things I was thinking about. What do you think? And it'll talk right back to you. The audio version of it's insane. And it's very soon it's going to start looking at you and it'll be like, yeah, you look nervous. Why don't you go do, some push-ups or whatever.
Yeah.
Like this stuff, it is like having 1,000 experts at your beck and call for, and it's free. It's free.
Yeah.
So what does that mean though, right? Like the AI and the implications of that, we could probably spend a whole nother hour talking about it, but I hope that is a positive change in the world, right? Because you can believe in Terminator, you can believe in utopia. I think it's going to be more utopia. I think this takes a lot of work. I think of like, it's no different to me than a carpenter that got the first nail gun, right? Or the accountant that got the first scientific calculator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or our kids use Alexa, right? It's not that much different. It's just but it's exponentially bigger and better, right? They say that it's going to have a bigger impact than the internet had by like 1,000 when it comes to commerce and accessibility and everything else. So that's one of the things I'd like to see everybody doing, is like learning how to use this tool, because if you don't, somebody else is going to learn and they're going to run right past you. For me 10 years, what am I? I'm 42 years old. I'll be 50. What do I want to change? One of the things I'm trying to get better at is being more present, right? Like that's something that I think is very elusive. I've done, I've been in and out of meditation. I've done the gratitude journalings, like all that stuff matters and it helps a lot. But there's been very, I'll share just a random story. Like I was outside picking dandelions for my wife. I'm using that tool where you stick it in and you pull the dandelions up. And I was out there barefooted for like 2 hours, just because we have a pretty big yard, and I'm, just on this dandelion massacre. And I get done and I sit down and I didn't have any earbuds in. I wasn't doing any calls. I wasn't listening to podcasts. I wasn't doing anything except just being in the moment. And I sat down and I kind of looked out at my house and our yard. We got a nice little play set. And I was so happy I almost cried. It was really profound. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's just because I was so present and I'd let everything else strip away, right? The worries of the day, the worries of tomorrow, problems, opportunities. So that's something I'd like to see change. I'd like to get that feeling more often. I'd like to feel and truly be present more often. All the time I'm at dinner with my wife, and even though I won't look at my phone as much as I want to, I really want to, I'm like, I wonder if that email came in. I wonder if that contract came in,
Yeah.
So I'd like to, just like for some people, it might be hard, not having wine or, not eating the cookies or not betting on the game or whatever. I'd like to be able to, turn it off a little easier and just be more present.
Yeah. You know what? That's good that you said that, because I have found, like, I have started meditating, which was something that I didn't do, right? Like, it was something that was kind of ethereal. It's kind of like, grew up in church, to go all the time, and so it was kind of like, you pray.
I pray, right? I don't need, I don't need a meditate. Yeah.
And so I had a young lady introduce me to, she's like a Mind Valley coach, and some of the things, and she was like, Michelle, I want you 30 days, like, do this. She's like, and it'll make such a difference. And she's like, especially with a lot of the work and stuff that you do, you deal with people a lot, just have a moment where you can just kind of go introspective, and leave everything behind, like get your mind where you can shut it down. And I was like, okay, I'll see what this does. It is a game changer. And being able to, like you said, because there is so much, like, and as we continue to evolve, right, there's even more, like the speed, like being available all the time. It used to be, hey, you had a pager. Well, now then you had a cell phone. Well, now it's like it's 24 hours nonstop, and literally you could be working around the clock. And so being able to kind of pull out and train yourself in a way to be able to do that and do it more often, there's huge value in that. There's huge value.
Yeah. There's a lot of tricks, like, I'm curious, are you using Headspace or do you use something else, or what do you
I use the Calm app.
Okay. Yeah, I know this one too. Yeah, I might check them out. I go in and out of Headspace. I like it. I think any of it's good, right? Whatever you can get that'll get you on the habit. Oh man, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, I was gonna say the other thing that had a pretty profound impact for me was gratitude journaling. So, first thing in the morning, what are a few things I'm grateful for, and then, like, what would make the day great? And you set the bar real low, like, it'd be great if I can, not get hit by a bus or whatever. And then at the end of the day, similar thing, but a reflection of, like, why was today great? And come up with 4 things. Today was great. I had a great podcast with my friend Michelle, right? Like, it's something that's, it's just like, I think a lot of times we go through the day and it's just on to the next. And it's, we don't take a second to look back and be like, oh man, today was actually a great day, right? Because look, if you don't have health issues, and you don't have, deep marital issues or massive issues, like, today really was a great day for most people. But I don't think we're trained to look for that, right? We're trained to look for, like, we look at the news, right? It's always the negative stuff, right? Like, our brain tuned to look for the negative, and focus on the negative because it's a survival mechanism, right? Like,
yeah. You know what? I can't even watch the news. I always tell people, I'm like, I am not like the avid news watcher. A lot of times my news has come to me third party. Like, somebody's bringing it to me because I just can't tune into it. I'm just one of those people where I'm like, you know what? I am not going to allow Debbie Downer to get me every day. Like, I can't.
I'm not terribly different. I'm, as most kids that went through my upbringing, you become very attuned to the room, right? So I became very much an empath, very, very, very empathetic. Yeah. So I can't watch a lot of this stuff. My wife, she watches like the Wives with Knives and the Snap, and
another 48 hours.
2020 Buried in the Backyard. All these horrible stories, and she's always sharing these things with me. I'm like, baby, I don't want to hear this stuff. I don't even want to know that exists in this world. Like I'd rather just be ignorant when it comes to a lot of this stuff. So it just makes me sad, like
It does.
I got my
Yeah.
news, but I use a company that I think they're called TLDR, and it's
Mhm.
like they deliver. I'll forward you one of the things they
Yeah.
deliver objective news, and it's like sound bites.
Oh,
It's not like,
really? Okay.
and yeah, and there's no, because like in Apple News or in Google News, like they're all trying to get you with the clickbait, right?
Right.
Because there's
Yeah.
thousands of news articles, but this is a curated list where they just give you every day. It's just like, hey, here's a thing that happened. Not
Mhm.
an opinion, not a right or left opinion, or
Right.
a subjective view on it. It's just very objective. Here's the thing that happened. Here's the thing that happened. Here's the thing that happened. So that
Oh,
if
absolutely.
you want to stay in tune, a little bit, that's a good way.
Now, you know what? Yeah, definitely send me the link. I haven't seen that. That I could probably do, but yeah, some
Yeah,
of it I'm just like,
and it,
I don't even want to.
and and it's short too. Their name of their company is TLDR. Too long, didn't read. Right? It's
Really?
like
Okay.
they take a big article and they crunch it down to 3 sentences, and they give you the link to the article, and they'll even tell you this is a 6 minute read, this is a 2 minute read, this is a 4 minute
Right. Yep.
read. So if
Love
you
that.
want to dig in, you know what
Mhm.
you're getting yourself into.
No, that's good. I would take that. You know what? I am something going back to something you said too about, change you like to see. And I think the AI, like you've got to get there. I was telling people, as things were starting to come out, like there were people get used to things, and then there's like been this whole scare with, hey, AI is going to take over the world. And I'm like, AI has been happening, guys, for a long time. If you had,
Yeah,
like if you're operating with GPS and a number of different things, AI has been working for a while. But I really kind of got into. I've been a nerd. Like I was a nerd in school, and I love school, and that's just kind of how I've been. So anything that's new, I'm always, let me read as much as I can about it. One of the things, do you have a rabbit or the
no,
Apple?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
No, I know what you're talking about. I don't have one though.
Yeah, I just got it, but it's the whole AI that allows it takes action for you, right? So
Yep.
like how normally your apps you're asking, hey, I need to get a ride so I can pull up the Uber app, or if I need to,
Yep.
but their whole premise was, apps was to make life easier, but now you have to use your phone you've got to go to an
Yeah.
app in order to make it happen. And so the thing with my rabbit is I can say, hey, Brad and I want to go on vacation, and we're looking at going to Greece. We want to we're going to be over there 5 days during this week. Let us know the best places that we can go.
Isn't it so cool? Isn't that
And
so cool?
it is. And then it does it. Like it
Yeah.
brought back all of the locations, the excursions that we might want to dive into. And then if we said, okay, this is the one we want to book, it'll book it for us. I was
Yeah, it's
like,
crazy. You can
yeah,
the abilities of this thing. When I say this thing, I just mean large
yeah,
language models, right, and
yep,
AI in general. Like you could give it your dietary preferences, right? Like how many nights out of that nights you guys want to party. How many,
yep,
what your appetite is for, nature versus city. I mean, it's insane,
it
how
is.
this thing can crunch. And it's funny, like a lot of people, I've done some talks on AI at some of our clients at their like leadership offsites and
Yeah,
what. And one of the things that, I try to break it down real simple for people is like, what is it? Right. And it's really just machine learning. And what's
yep,
machine learning? It's really just statistics. And what statistics is really just like, if I said red, 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 blue, red, 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 blue, red, 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 you'd think
blue.
blue, right? Because
Yeah,
statistically, that's
yeah,
probably what I was going to say, right? Maybe I was going to say green, but that's the point of probabilistic modeling, right? Is like
right.
you got some training that I just did with you real quickly, and you
Mhm.
knew that probably I wanted to hear blue. So take that kind of ideal and take all the, like, you just had one little piece of information, the red, 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 blue pattern. Take all the information in every book and every Wikipedia and every website, every piece of scripture that was ever written, and do the same thing, right? Like, so
Right.
based on all these things, if I ask a question, what's the most probabilistic answer? It is just, it's insane. So it's really, for all your listeners, I think this is probably gonna be looked back on as one of the most exciting times to have been alive, to see
Oh,
what this is
absolutely.
gonna do. I mean, think
Yeah.
of like something as simple as like automated cars, right? Like I'm a
Mhm.
big fan of Tesla. We have Teslas. Like, what does
Mhm.
it mean when cars really drive themselves? Which my Tesla does. Like, it thing drives
Yeah.
itself. like I'm
Yeah.
I'm there, but it's driving, right? What does it mean when all cars do that? All of a sudden, we need 1/20th of the amount of cars, because now, I don't
Mhm.
need to even own a car. I'll just have a Tesla pass, and some Tesla is going to pick me up and take me wherever I want to go. And I'll go do what I got to do. And I'll push a button, or I'll talk to
Yep.
Siri or whatever. And another car will come pick me up and take me where it'll become the new public transportation. Then all of a sudden you don't need parking garages anymore. Emissions go down.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just like, that's just one little thing. It's just
Yeah.
one little problem that it's going to solve. And then you think of like what it can do for disease curing and management, and
Yeah.
all, healthcare. I mean, obviously, I think the biggest opportunities in healthcare. There's
Absolutely.
just so much can be, so much can be made more efficient, right?
Absolutely. You know what? That's just the thing. It's kind of like I'm like learning, like with the folks that I talk to and stuff, because I'm always asking, and people are fearful about some things, and I'm like, hey, if it's something that you don't know, just spend a little time learning it. Just spend a little bit of time learning about it, what it can do, why it does what it does, and how it can help. Because there is nothing that people are trying to figure out or wanting to do. AI can help. AI can help you with a lot of stuff. Oh my God, AC, the time is going by so quickly. And I know that we've got to go, but I want to, before we close out, I would love for you to give me, what would you say are the big three lessons learned that you always share with others as it relates to change? Big three.
I'd say one is the effort thing, right? I think I
Yep.
probably covered all these, so it's going to be maybe more of a recap. But yeah, I think effort, right? Like I tell anybody, anybody that's going up against anything, I just say, look, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better,
Mhm.
right? And comfort's on the other side of it. I mean, you gotta be willing to put in the grind, the hours, the time, the care, the heart, the tears, the sweat, the blood, the whatever it is, right? Depending on
Mhm.
what you're trying to change or go through, or what you
Yep.
maybe something happened to you, right? Like you get in a car accident or something, right? It takes a lot of effort to recover from that. So I think the effort is probably one. I think the lesson about change, like people only change when they heard enough that they have to, or they learn enough that they want to, because I think that teaches people that, like, oh, because I'll even ask people, I'll say, like, tell me about some of the changes you've had. And they'll tell me, and it's you, I'm telling you, it's 9 out of 10 times it was because of some tragic, horrible thing, health scare,
Yeah.
a death, losing a
Yep.
job, losing a relationship, losing a pet, whatever. It's always, people make big changes when something big and bad happens to them, right? And I'd love to see that ratio flip flop. And the last thing I'll do, I think this is maybe from like, The Secret. I don't know, one of an early book I read a long time ago, but the
Yeah.
whole, like, what we think about, we bring about.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I think that can't be underscored enough. Whether you really believe in the law of attraction, or the universe, puts things, the way you think about them. Like whether you do or don't believe that, like, I think the point is, like, if I think about, being broke all the time and how bad
Mhm.
it sucks, I'm probably just gonna be broke all the time.
Right.
But if I
Yeah.
think about, man, you know what? I want to have a better life. I want to have an abundant life. I want to live
Mhm.
abundantly, right? And I start thinking like that, all of a
Yep.
sudden I start seeing opportunities, and I start, like, changing my filters change, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I think,
Yep.
like, what we think about, we bring about. You really gotta be conscious of your thoughts. They're really
Absolutely.
powerful. I think I read somewhere we have 60,000 of them a day,
A
right? So
day.
they can be positive thoughts, or they can be really dark negative thoughts, right? And I think you want to lean towards the former to cultivate a better life.
No, you are absolutely right. I completely 100% agree. Yeah, we frame our world with our words. And so, whatever it is that you're thinking and you say, like, really being mindful of what you're thinking about, you bring about. That's true. Very true. AC, it has been a pleasure. AC Evans, the founder, CEO, drips.com. Go and check them out. AC, it has been my pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, thank you. It's been fun. Your zeal is contagious. I'm gonna go, run circles around my house or something now. This is fun.
Cool beans. Well, have a good rest of your day. And thanks again. And so, all right, audience, I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. This has been MG with the Reimagine You Lab podcast and my guest, AC Evans, founder of Drips. Thanks again, AC, and I will see you the next time.